My name is Jesse. I am a Maze Guy, and this is Math with the Maze Guy. Hi again. Thanks for stopping by. So, what I've been wanting to do is talk about math, talk about some helpful ways in dealing with math, because a lot of people seem to be intimidated and they keep saying, I don't use that stuff outside of high school or outside of school. That's quite a lie. That's quite a misconception because every time you're at a grocery store, every time you're thinking about time management, you're thinking about your paycheck, which obviously is one of the biggest, most important things around here is you're using math. You're using math to cook. You're using math for everything. But a lot of us are a little intimidated by some of it. So I'm here to just hopefully help with some of that. Now, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. I've gone over that in previous shows several years ago. But a lot of that is mainly going to be through your calculator. Phones nowadays will have all that stuff. You just say, hey, G-Man. I'm not going to say the actual word because he'll turn on, but hey, G-Man or Siri, whoever you're talking to, what's 3 times 3? It'll automatically give you the answer, or even decimals and stuff like that. So adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, hopefully you got the hang of that. If not, just use your calculator, but you got to learn a lot of math techniques. And one of the big things about math are the words. Lots of people are intimidated by word problems. So I decided I'd like to start with talking about word problems. Now, the 4 big things are the add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Whoops, ran out of room there, but hopefully you can see all that. So some words that you're going to look for are going to be those basic words. If they tell you add these numbers together, you're going to look at each number and you're going to add them all up. There's other words that you're going to look for. When they say the sum, what is the sum of these numbers? You look at each one of those numbers and you add them all up together. So again, another one might be together. Excuse my messy writing, but trying to go a little fast here. But one of the big ones for addition is going to be plus. So what's this plus this? This plus that. That's addition. We know that, right? Subtraction. Let's look at a couple of words for subtraction. We think maybe difference. What is the difference between these two? What is, let's take away this from that. So take away. Let's go with the obvious one, right? This minus that. So minus. Minus, and then, one of the big ones that I had just been looking at was like sales. When you're saying, how much did you take off? So sales off. I'll just kind of write it as sales off. How much did you get off from this particular sale or this particular equation or whatnot? So those are a few of them for subtraction. Multiply is a really interesting one. So this one is just kind of generalized. So don't take these words and say, this is what he said, it has to mean that. No. Think about what they're saying. Think about what the problem is asking for. And figure it out. Use one of these, the add, subtract, multiply, or divide. Now, multiply, one of the biggest words for multiply, other than multiply these two numbers, is going to be the word of. Of is usually like 2 of 3. We're talking about 2 rows of 3 columns. 2 groups of 3 individual things. So we're talking usually about multiplication. So of is a very important word. Usually think about it as multiplication. But again, think clearly about what the question is asking you, because it could say, well, what's the sum of 4, 5, and 8? You're like, wait, he said of means multiply, so 4 times 5. No. If we say sum of, you're looking at those 3 different numbers and you're adding those up. Which leads to an interesting point, because you're like the sum of X. I won't get into that because it gets a little confusing, but you get the hang of it. You start looking at math and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I know I can do these things because this is what they really mean. So think about of a lot. Sets is another one. Now, though this one, sets and groups, don't quote me on always meaning math, because in higher mathematics, you're going to be looking at sets and groups, and you're going to be doing certain things to them that have certain properties and blah blah blah. So if you want to go deep into math, yes, you will see these words again, and they may not always mean math, but in the general sense, we're looking at two sets of three, two groups of four. That means 2 times 4. So think about all those different words and how you might use them differently. Now, divide is obviously one of those that you have to kind of think about, because division is fractions. They are decimals. They are I'm sorry. They are pieces of a whole. So when you come to the pieces of a whole, you're gonna have to think about that 5.4. So it's 5 and 4/10. Think about division as pieces of a whole. So we're kind of dividing things up. And that one, again, is going to be a little bit more intuitive. And when you're starting to hear the words and look at the problems, you're going to figure out what it is. Another one to maybe look at, that one is going to be per into rates. Just think about what it's asking, and eventually you practice, and you'll figure them out on your own. Now, aside from the add, subtract, multiplying, and dividing, the biggest ones that you need to look for are the words what, is, and find. Those are pretty big words because they tell you this is what we're looking for, or this is the item we want to solve. What is usually going to be your unknown, usually going to be something that we don't know. We're looking for what that is. So that's what. Is usually is going to be your equal sign. We're going to say 4 is 2 plus 2. Then we know equal sign. 4 equals 2 plus 2. So remember, is usually going to be equal. And then you use that to manipulate some of the equations, because they're going to tell you Frank's is 10, Sally's is 5. How much do Frank and Sally have together? Well, Frank is 10, Sally is 5. Together, Frank and Sally make 15. So keep an eye out for is. Same with find. Find is going to be one of the same things as what, but it'll usually tell you find X, Y, or Z, or find this particular number. So we got these as our words. I'm going to erase all of this, and I will come back with some examples. Okay, so here we have some problems that are using those words that we were just talking about. So again, what, there's your X, is equals 19%. We can easily put that in decimal point because that's the easiest way to multiply something out or add something, whatever. But 0.19 of multiply 26. So when you do that in your calculator, or if you have to do this 26 times 0.19, you're going to come out with 4.94. I didn't do that in my head. I had it all written down, so don't get intimidated by math teachers or anybody else that's doing it faster than you are, because we all have some struggle or another, and it's not necessarily going to click at any moment. So just work at it slowly. Now the next one's telling you 50 is what percent of 127. Think about it again. So we're saying 50 is what percent of 127. So at this point we got an equation. We want the x alone. We divide by 127. Since we're multiplying, we do the opposite. 127 we get x equals 50 divided by 127, which is going to be approximately, that's what those little squiggly lines mean, is going to be approximately 0.393 blah 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 blah. But when we're talking about percentages, we are mainly concerned with these first two numbers. We know 39%, which is the hundreds. We'll go over that some other time, but right now, to instantly change this into percent, we got 39%. So we know 50 is 39%. Well, at this point, because it came out to quite a long number, we're going to say 50 is approximately 39% of 127. In a test or something, they're going to give you nice, pretty numbers that'll work out. But in this case, I just picked out random numbers and I'm giving you the exact answer. This last one shows 10% off of $50. First, when we say off, we know we're going to be subtracting. But first, we need to find out what is 10% of $50. So that's just the same thing I just said here. What is 10% of $50? So x is 0.10 times 50. So x is 5. But now we want to know what 10% off of $50 is. So 50 minus 5 is 45. So that would be your answer that we're looking for. Again, just look for some of the words that are common and realize what you're talking about. We're taking things off. We're finding percentages of multiplication. And then what are very important as well. So we'll look at a couple more examples here in a moment. All right, so I've written out a couple more problems that are a little bit more challenging. But if we look for those words that we've been looking at and we think about some of the ways that it's been talking to us, then we should be okay. So first we're looking at Jose has 16 CDs. This is 4 more than 1/2 the amount Christian has. How many CDs does Christian have? We'll forget about the fact that nobody uses CDs anymore, but let's look at what the question is actually saying. So how many CDs does Christian have? That's what we're looking for. What does C? Christian will say C is Christian. Question mark. Jose, we know, has 16 CDs. 16 is 4 more. So right here it says this is, whatever that is, so 16 is 4 more than 1/2 the amount Christian has. So 4 plus 1/2 of what Christian has. When we're right here, we should be able to say, all right, this is all an equation. We need to practice on that one more, then we've got to practice. But minus 4 on both sides. We get 12, and we get equals 1/2 C. And then to get rid of that half, we have to multiply both sides by 2. That gets rid of that. And then we get C equals 2 times 12, 24. So now we know Christian has 24 CDs. And you can easily check that by looking at the actual problem and going backwards. So half of Christian's amount is 12 plus 4 is the 16 CDs that we already knew Jose had. So go backwards, make sure that you do have the right answer. That's something mathematicians will always take care of. Now the next one says, a phone that sells for $190 is on sale for 15% off. What is the sale price of the phone? So when we say sale and off, we're looking for subtraction. But first we have to find out what is 15% of the 190. So when we do 190 times 15%, and I just put the decimal in there because we know 15% is 0.15, we get $28.50. I already took care of the math. Don't get intimidated by people that are doing math a lot faster because there's tricks and things, and we'll go over some of them, but for right now, we wanted to look at the words. But, so now we know that 15% of 190 is $28.50. We want to make sure, what is the sale price when we take it off? So at this point, we're going to look at 190 minus $28.50. And that gets us a total price of $161.50. So that's what you're going to be paying at the register. So recognize sale off, we're subtracting whatever we found out, 15% of the 190. So the last one is a little bit more tricky, and I had to write it down because there was an original way that I was trying to do this, but I'll show you both ways. First, it says Pablo purchased 14 new baseball cards for his collection. This increased his collection by 35%. How many baseball cards does Pablo now have? So essentially, we're thinking, okay, we want to know how many baseball cards Pablo has. When he bought 14 new cards, that was an increase of 35% of his original, of whatever he originally had. So we're going to say 14 is, which is equal, 35% of the original number of cards that Pablo had. So we'll call that P. So when we have that, we're going to find out the original number that Pablo had is going to be, divide both sides by 0.35. 14 divided by 0.35, that gets you 1. We know that he originally had 40 cards. And then he added 14 new ones. So now Pablo has 54 cards, right? We added. I was doing this a little differently. I was thinking about how do we get to, well, how can we write equations that would tell us what amount Pablo has? So I initially thought, okay, well, Pablo has so many cards. He added 14 of them. This is the original number he had plus 35% of the original number. Which this works out itself too, because when you look at it, you're going to subtract a P on both sides. And that gets you to 14 equals 0.35 P, which is the exact same thing that we had over here. And you get the correct answer where the original is 40, but he added 14 new ones. That gets us 54. So I'm hoping that this helps. Just again, look at all the words, look at what you're given. Go backwards if you need to verify the answers, and you should be all right. I'm going to try to do as many as I can, but yeah, let's explore math.